welcome back to my channel. If it's the first time that you're over this side of YouTube, my name is Miss Renee Richards, and I make content to help women who hasn't had the most conventional start in life, and they've made a load of mistakes and they're just trying to figure things back out, find themselves, find God, find peace, and just do the best that they can for themselves and for their little ones as well. Now, this video is really different from the type of videos that I've been doing in the past few weeks and past few months. It's a video that I have wanted to do for some time, but let me tell you, it has been a spiritual warfare to get this video released. Every time I said, okay, I'm going to do this video, I have felt so discouraged to the point where I wanted to delete YouTube. I felt discouraged. I felt tormented with negative thoughts. When I've eventually said, okay, I'm still going to record this video, and I've put the phone in front of me to start recording. If my phone don't ring, my battery dies. If my battery don't die, I get a notification to say the battery's gonna die. If that don't happen, iPhone decides that I ain't got no storage. Despite the fact that I've deleted so much apps, so much videos, so much pictures from off my phone just to do this video, it has literally been a spiritual warfare to get this video out. When I tell you that I've been so determined to record this video in hopes that it will be a blessing to someone who is battling with some form of addiction, whether that be weed, whether that be alcohol, to know that God saves, God is merciful, God is kind, God cares. And whatever he can do in my life, that he can also do for you. And whatever addiction it is that you are battling with, just as God took away that urge for it from me, that he can do, that he can so do the same for you too. This is part of my testimony. It's how God took my addiction for weed away from me. And yeah, now this is one of them moments. This experience for me was one of them moments where I can say, yeah, God's really real. I've heard him, I've seen him move in my life, and he's not the God that I just hear about in church, or I hear my parents sing and talk about. Like, I've had an actual connection and an actual experience with him for myself. Now, I moved out when I was 16, and before I moved out, as a teenager, my friends, they all smoke fags, cigarettes, they all smoke weed. But it's funny because when I used to hang around them, I never felt like I had to, or I never felt like I had that need that I wanted to smoke. Like, I was just never that girl. I don't even think I really even drank, to be fair. I just never really had that great, strong inclination. However, when I moved out, oh, my belly. However, when I moved out at 16, I was with this guy, and he was a lot older than me by a good 15, 16 years, and he smoked. And because of the type of relationship that I was in, and I was completely isolated from my friends, and I was just with this guy 24/7, I started to smoke. And I had this addiction. From that point, I was addicted to weed for a good 10, 11 years, because I didn't stop smoking fully and properly until I was 26. I was badly addicted to weed, to the point where I had weed for breakfast, weed for lunch, weed for dinner, weed for desserts, weed for snacks. I would smoke right throughout the clock. I would go to work and leave work at lunchtime and have a spliff and go back to work. I heavily depended on weed to get through my day. If I didn't have a spliff, I couldn't go to bed. I couldn't sleep at night. If I didn't have a spliff, I couldn't go to the toilet. Like my addiction for weed was that bad. I was like a nitty. I was like a fiend, but not a fiend for crack or cocaine or for heroin. I was a fiend for weed. It was that bad. Now, weed affects people in different ways. A lot of people will say that if they have anger issues and they smoke weed, it calms them down. Some people say that if they smoke weed, that they can clean the house all day and they can get a load of stuff done. That's good for them. I do know that weed affects everyone negatively. No matter how we're going to pretty it up, I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that weed affects everyone negatively. For me, looking back now, I can see exactly how weed affected my life. I can see how weed affected me. Now, before I started smoking, I always had body. Within 6 months of smoking, I went from maybe a size 10 to a size 6 real quick. And that's just literally because I was smoking so much. I was away from home. I was trying to live this big woman life. I was isolated from my friends. I was just smoking. I weren't really eating properly. I weren't really happy. And with all of those things combined, I started to lose weight, but I didn't notice it until one day I went to the store. And before I went to the store, I was like, okay, instead of wearing leggings and tights, I'm just going to drag on the jeans. I put on this jeans, and it was only when I started walking down the road, I felt my jeans legit falling off me. Now, these were jeans that fit me perfectly. They sat on me. When I tell you, every step that I stepped down the road, my jeans was just dropping. When I was walking back home, I felt tears drop from my eyes because I was like, where has my weight gone? When I got home, I was so vexed. I cut up the jeans out of anger and frustration. And I cut up the jeans and I started to cry. And I remember the guy was like, oh, I saw that you've been losing weight and I just didn't know how to say it to you. So for me, I couldn't gain no weight whilst I was smoking weed. Weed made me paranoid, extremely paranoid. Weed affected my finances because I depended so heavily on it. I spent a lot of money on it. I would smoke maybe like a gram of weed would last me a day. A day, 2 days, very pushing it. So a week I'd easily spend 70, 80, 90, £100 on weed, if not more. I only sort of got a break of it when I got pregnant with Amari. Because I'd suffered a stillbirth beforehand, I was not trying to do anything at all to affect this pregnancy, the pregnancy with Amari. So I'd stopped smoking. I'd stopped smoking as soon as I found out I was pregnant. And I met a new guy maybe when Amari was about 1. And the stress that came with that relationship, I started smoking again. So all the stuff that I'd suffered with before I was pregnant, when I was smoking, and they obviously went, once I'd stopped smoking, because I'd started again, the paranoia came back. I lost weight again. I started to depend heavily again on weed, and my finances went literally down the drain again. So all of this happened. We're skipping a couple of years. Amari was around 2 going to 3, and I decided that I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to smoke anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to be in the environment that I was in, and I needed a change. And I moved to Wales to be closer to my mum and my family, to get the support of Amari, that I could go back to school and get my life sorted out, because I was a hot mess. I was a mess, guys. I was a mess. So I moved to Wales and all was going well until I started speaking back to the guy that I was speaking to after I had Amari. Cut a long story short, he moved in, and guess what moved with him? My addiction. I started smoking again. And what came along with my addiction? The paranoia, the dependency of the weed. My weight went, and I went back to being mager. And because I was so slim, each time I lost weight, it affected my mental health. It affected my self-esteem. It affected how I saw myself. It affected how I loved myself. I hated seeing myself so skinny, but I couldn't seem to stop smoking. Last relationship, and that last time that I started smoking again, that relationship came with a lot of toxicity. I can never say that word. That relationship was really toxic. There was a lot of police involvement. There was social service involvement, but that literally is for another video. And the more I was going through these things in this relationship, I'd smoked like never before. And God used a storm to save me. I had given up completely on going to university and becoming a dental profession, and I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna open up this clothing store. There was an empty store in the area, and contacted them, and they, cut a long story short, they leased me this store. So I'm so pumped up about this store. I've got so many ideas, and I'm like, Renee, I can't run a successful business with this addiction that I've got, because every money that I'm gonna make from this store is gonna go back into this addiction, and we can't have that. And 2, I can't run this successful business with this man that I'm with, who has such a bad reputation in this area that I'm with, who means me and my son no good. And for the longest while, I wasn't really praying. My relationship with God, I mean, when I was pregnant, I started to develop a relationship with God. And once this guy had come back in, and once the smoking had started, my relationship with God and what I was trying to build with him went out the door. So each time I started smoking, I weren't talking to God. Now, when the shop came about, I was like, God, I want this to work. I really want this to work, but I've got this addiction. I've got this lifestyle that I'm in, that if you don't save me from, I'm going to either go to prison, I'm going to end up dead, and my child's going to be taken from me. And I've got this guy in my life who I can't seem to get rid of. So you're going to have to, I don't know what you're going to do, but I really want this shop to work. I really want this new start in my life. But I've got these things that are going to hold me back and weigh me down. So again, as I said, the shop's there, and I'm putting all my efforts in the shop. And I prayed that prayer one day, and I was just talking to God one day, and New Year's Eve 2018 came, and I just told the guy that he had to go because I could not do this no more. The life that we had been living in Wales, I didn't want to live that type of life anymore. I didn't want to go to prison. I didn't want to lose my child, and I don't want to smoke and drink anymore. I want peace. I want happiness. I want God. I couldn't do it anymore. So I kicked him out New Year's Eve, and about 3 days later, dude turns back up at my house. I think during that time, that 3 days that he weren't there, I was crying and praying and trying to stop smoking. He came back and I started smoking heavily again. The whole situation with the shop didn't go through because a loan that I needed to kind of get the shop started, I didn't get the loan. So I was so depressed. So I remember my stepdad called me one morning. He was like, come get yourself ready. We're going to go to church and whatever. So I was like, okay then. So I went to church. And again, as I said, I'm depressed at this point. I'm depressed because I kicked the guy out. I ain't got a shop. The idea of a shop no longer exists. And I want to stop smoking, but because of all that's going on, I can't seem to fully kick my habit. So Adventist churches, you know that you won't go to church in the morning and you ain't coming back home until nighttime. So it was a blessing for me. So I went to church, spent the whole day at church, and he dropped me back home in the night. And I remember I got back in and it was like reality hit me again. Thinking again about the whole situation about the shop, thinking that my whole dream and desire to become a dental practitioner is gone as well. This relationship is gone, and I'm just in this home by myself with my child, and I'm feeling so depressed. So I put Amari to bed, and I remember I went into the kitchen and I rolled up a spliff, and I sat there in the kitchen and I was just so down and so depressed. And I'm there smoking and I'm there smoking and I'm there smoking. And I remember, clear as day, the Lord said to me, I'm going to change your life. And even this smoking, I'm going to get you to stop. And I remember the spliffs in my hand like this, and I literally, the voice is just like how I'm speaking to, that's how audible it was. And I shrugged my shoulders and I was like, yeah, okay then. Within a few months, within a few weeks, I stopped smoking. I didn't believe that I fully could because of how low I was. But God said, I'm going to change your life. And even this, you smoking, I'm going to get you to stop. And I did. I stopped smoking. And by me stop smoking, I no longer suffered with paranoia. I stopped suffering with paranoia. Gained weight, as you guys can see. I'm constantly hiding my little flaps. I gained back weight. I could see my finances. I could save for things. because my money wasn't going back into weed and it wasn't going back into alcohol. I had peace that didn't experience for a very long time. And God did do that. He did change my life. Where I felt hopelessness with where my life was going, a few months later, from God speaking to me like that, I applied for 5 different institutions for uni that year to do dental nursing and dental technology, and I was accepted. I think 4 out of 5 I was accepted. And I moved to Middlesbrough that year, and I have watched God work wonders in my life from that moment onwards. Literally took me up and he dusted me off, and he has been working with me since. As I said at the beginning of this video, I hope that whoever this video reaches, they'll know that. I want you to know that God is so real, and there's nothing that, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're struggling with, don't feel as if he doesn't care and he doesn't want to help you through it. He is there. Sometimes when things are crushing around us and when things are falling and things are crumbling, like we're just thinking, why is nothing not working? That's his way of saving us. If God can take my addiction and my craving away from weed for weed, he will do the very, 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 very same for you. And if God can speak to me so loud and so audible, he will with you as well. He can make his presence known to me to make me know that I am loved, that this thing that I'm suffering with, I don't have to suffer with it anymore, that he will take the suffering from me. He will do for you as well. I just want you to know that there's nothing that you're going through that God doesn't care about. There's no addictions that you have that God cannot take away from you. Did I have to do my part after he spoke to me? Of course. Because the feelings still came over me. I was still highly tempted. But I used the things that he had put in place to help me get over that as well. I think I was making candles at one point, and every time I felt like I wanted to smoke, I would make a candle with Amari. And I formed good relationships with people who meant well and wanted to see me overcome and get past that dark patch in my life. And with their help, with my crafting, with God, was able to overcome this addiction. I just want you to know that there's nothing that you're going through that God does not care about. There's no addiction that you have with God that you cannot overcome, and there's no addiction that you have that God can't set you free from and that he doesn't care about. I've got to the end of this video and I've finally been able to record this video, which has taken me so long to do, but to God be the glory. And I will see you all in my next video.